After a decade supporting my family, they planned to abandon me to live their dream life. I was elbow deep in dirty dishwater when I found the brochure. It had fallen behind the kitchen counter, glossy and colorful against the dusty baseboard. Luxury living in Palm Springs, where every day is paradise. Curious, I wiped my hands and picked it up. The pages were dog-eared, covered in my mother's loopy handwriting, "Master bedroom for us." Pool maintenance included, and most tellingly, Max gets the guest house. There was no note about where I would stay. No room circled for Clara. No acknowledgement that I existed at all in this shiny retirement fantasy, despite the fact that I was the one paying the mortgage on our current house, the one sending emergency money every month, the one who had postponed her own life for nearly a decade to keep the Turner family afloat. I flipped to the back page where pricing was listed. The cheapest model started at $875,000. My hands started shaking, not from anger though that would come later, but from something closer to clarity. The kind that feels like ice water being poured directly into your brain. Mom walked in, humming to herself as she arranged flowers she'd bought with my credit card. She froze when she saw what I was holding. "Oh, you found that old thing," she laughed, too brightly. "Just a silly dream. Your father likes to browse those websites. You know how he is with his little fantasies." I held up the brochure, pointing to the notes. "This says meeting with realtor, Tuesday at 3. That's tomorrow." Her smile tightened. "Clara, honey, it's just exploratory, for someday far in the future. The note says you're bringing a down payment, 20%. My voice was surprisingly calm. "That's $175,000 minimum. Where exactly is that money coming from, Mom?" She waved dismissively. "Oh, don't worry about that. Max has some investors lined up for his new business idea. Very promising. Once that takes off." I didn't let her finish. "Max hasn't held a job for more than 3 months since college. His last, very promising business idea was artisanal ice cubes. They were infused with organic herbs," she protested. "They were water, Mom. Frozen water that he sold for $18 a tray until the health department shut him down." Mom's face hardened, dropping the pretense. "I don't appreciate your tone. After everything we've done for you." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity had finally overwhelmed my lifetime of conditioning to keep the peace, to be the responsible one, to fix everything. "What exactly have you done for me, besides drain my bank account, crush my social life, and plan to abandon me after I've sacrificed my entire 20s keeping this family from financial ruin?" She gasped, hand fluttering to her chest. "How dare you? We gave you life. We put a roof over your head." "I put a roof over your head. I've been paying this mortgage for 7 years. That's when my father wandered in, fresh from his daily 4-hour strategic thinking session nap on the living room couch. "What's all the commotion, Clara? Your mother has a sensitive constitution. You know she can't handle confrontation." I held up the brochure. "Did you plan to tell me about Palm Springs before or after you took my retirement fund for the down payment?" Dad's face went through an impressive series of expressions: surprise, guilt, anger, and finally, righteousness. "Now, Clara, family helps family. We've always expected that as the successful one. You'd want to ensure our golden years are comfortable. Max has certain limitations that— Max is 33 years old and perfectly capable of working. His only limitation is that he's been coddled into uselessness while I've been treated like the family ATM." The back door slammed. And speak of the devil, my younger brother sauntered in. Max had our father's height and our mother's charm, combined with the work ethic of a particularly lazy house cat. He was wearing designer sunglasses I recognized from a business expense he'd charged to my credit card last month. "What's up, finance nerd?" He grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl I'd filled yesterday. "Mom, did you ask Clara about the loan yet? My crypto investment needs capital ASAP. It's literally guaranteed returns." The three of them exchanged glances, a conspiratorial look I'd seen countless times before. The look that said, "Clara will fix this. Clara always fixes everything." Not this time. My name is Clara Turner. I'm 30 years old, and after nearly a decade of being the invisible fixer, the reliable provider, and the unappreciated backbone of my family, I was about to teach them exactly what happens when you push the responsible one too far. And trust me, they weren't going to like it. To understand how I ended up as my family's personal bank, you need to understand the Turner family dynamic. My parents, Robert and Diana Turner, had once been moderately successful dad in real estate, mom in interior design, nothing spectacular, but comfortable enough to raise two children in a nice suburb and take decent vacations. Then came the 2008 recession. Dad's business collapsed when the housing market crashed. Mom's wealthy clients suddenly became budget conscious. They remortgaged our house, cashed out their retirement accounts, and waited for the market to recover. It didn't, at least not for them. Dad never adapted to the new real estate landscape. Mom never rebuilt her client base. Instead of downsizing or finding steady jobs, they kept trying increasingly desperate entrepreneurial ventures. A home staging business that staged exactly two homes. A house flipping project that flopped spectacularly. A short-lived catering company shut down after multiple food safety violations. Meanwhile, I worked my way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, got my finance degree, and landed an entry-level position at an investment firm. By 23, I was making decent money, not wealth management rich, but stable. That's when the requests started. Clara, honey, we're a little short on the mortgage this month, just a temporary setback. Clara, sweetie, Max needs seed money for his cold brew coffee subscription service. It's going to be huge. Clara, darling, the property taxes are due and we're asset rich but cash poor right now. Each time. I told myself it was just this once. Each time. I transferred the money. Each time. The amounts grew larger and the excuses flimsier. Max, meanwhile, had graduated with a degree in communications barely and proceeded to launch a series of spectacular failures: the coffee subscription that delivered exactly 4 orders before folding, a social media app for pet fashion that never made it past the concept phase despite $20,000 of my investment, a food truck selling deconstructed sandwiches that was, literally, just ingredients served separately on a plate. Each failure was met with parental understanding. Max is finding his path. Max is an ideas person. Not everyone is a conventional worker bee like you, Clara. And each time, I cleaned up the financial mess. I consolidated their debts. I helped them refinance the house, putting my name on the mortgage when their credit wouldn't qualify. I set up automatic transfers to ensure bills were paid on time. By 27, I was living in the guest room of my parents' house, which I was now technically paying for, sending 60% of my income to family expenses, and watching my own dreams of travel, graduate school, and eventually starting my own firm evaporate like morning dew. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the complete lack of acknowledgement. My parents spoke of our struggles and getting through this as a family, as if we were all making equal sacrifices. They praised Max's entrepreneurial spirit while taking my contributions for granted. And Max treated me like his personal banker, approaching with business plans instead of applications, expecting funding without accountability. Until today, when that Palm Springs brochure made everything crystalline in its clarity, they didn't see me as part of their future at all, just the financial stepping stone to get there. I didn't confront them further that evening. Instead, I retreated to my room and did what I do best: made a plan. A financial plan, to be specific. But this time, instead of figuring out how to save my family from their latest crisis, I mapped out exactly how to save myself. First, I pulled my credit reports. As expected, there were several cards I didn't recognize opened in my name, undoubtedly by my mother, who knew my social security number. The balances were stomach-churning: $12,000 here, $8,000 there, over $40,000 in fraudulent debt. Next, I checked the mortgage statements. Although my name was on the loan, I discovered missed payments I hadn't been told about. Late fees had accumulated. The house I thought I was responsibly paying for was actually teetering on pre-foreclosure, while my automatic transfers had apparently been diverted to other family necessities, like Max's 3-week business research trip to Miami last winter. Finally, I reviewed my retirement account. The balance was significantly lower than it should have been. Someone had taken out loans against it, which could only have been done with my login information. By midnight, the picture was complete. I wasn't just supporting my family, I was being systematically defrauded by them. And they were planning to take the money and run to a luxury community in Palm Springs where I wasn't even allocated a bedroom. I slept surprisingly well that night. There's a certain peace that comes with absolute clarity. By morning, Operation Financial Freedom was ready to launch. Morning. Finance nerd. Max was already at the kitchen table, scrolling on his phone while eating cereal I had purchased. So listen, about that crypto thing. Not now, Max, I said pleasantly. I have a meeting with a potential investor for your project. His spoon clattered against the bowl. Wait, seriously, who, when? How much are they putting in? I smiled. A colleague is very interested in your blockchain concept. I had no idea what his current scheme actually was, but blockchain was always in there somewhere. I'm meeting him for lunch to discuss details. Max's eyes widened, for once. He really looked at me with something approaching respect. Clara, wow, thanks. Family helps family, I said, echoing my father's words from yesterday. Mom wandered in, already dressed in one of her designer outfits purchased with my Nordstrom card. Naturally. Clara, darling, I need to borrow your car today. Mine is making that funny noise again. Of course, I said. The keys are on the hook. Oh. And I transferred some extra money to the joint account this morning. The house needs a few repairs, and I thought you might want to handle that. Mom's face lit up. How thoughtful. I've been saying the guest bathroom needs updating for ages. I nodded. Whatever you think is best. I trust your judgment. She beamed, already mentally redecorating. You're such a good daughter. I was just telling Mrs. Abernathy yesterday how fortunate we are to have you. I'm the fortunate one, I replied, meaning it in ways she couldn't possibly understand. Dad appeared next, newspaper under his arm, though he never read past the sports section. Morning, family Clara. I've been thinking about that conversation yesterday. Perhaps I was a bit insensitive about the Palm Springs situation. Water under the bridge, I assured him. Actually, I've been doing some financial projections. We should discuss retirement planning soon, making sure everyone's future is secure. His eyebrows rose. Well, that's very proactive of you. Yes, let's definitely do that. I finished my coffee and stood. I should get to work. Big day ahead. As I left the house, I could feel their collective relief. The crisis had been averted. Clara was still their golden goose, still fixing everything, still funding their fantasies. If only they knew what I was actually planning. Step 1 of Operation Financial Freedom was simple: secure my own living situation. By lunchtime, I had signed a lease on a one-bedroom apartment across town, modest but modern, and most importantly, requiring only my name on the paperwork. Step 2 was more complex but equally crucial: financial disentanglement. I spent my lunch break opening new bank accounts at a different institution, redirecting my direct deposit, canceling joint credit cards, and freezing my credit reports at all 3 bureaus. No more unauthorized cards could be opened in my name. Step 3 was the trickiest: documenting the fraud. I carefully compiled statements showing unauthorized charges, forged signatures, and misappropriated funds. I didn't plan to press charges, they were still my family. Despite everything, but I needed leverage. By 3:00 p.m., when my parents were supposedly meeting their Palm Springs realtor, I was meeting with a lawyer specializing in financial abuse cases. By 4:30, I had a clear understanding of my rights and responsibilities. By 5:00, I was back at my desk, finalizing the last and most satisfying part of my plan. That evening, I returned home to find Max sprawled on the couch, frustration evident on his face. Your investor friend never showed up, he complained. Oh, that's strange, I replied. Maybe he got held up. I'll check in tomorrow. Mom bustled in from the kitchen. Clara, wonderful news. The contractor can start on the bathroom renovation next week. It's going to be divine Italian marble, rainfall shower, the works. I nodded encouragingly. Sounds perfect. And, she continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, I put a deposit on that Palm Springs property, just to hold it, you understand? The market there is so competitive. My stomach clenched, but I maintained my smile. How exciting! How much was the deposit? Just 20,000, she said casually, as if discussing pocket change. I used that money you transferred this morning. I hope that's okay. I know you meant it for repairs, but this was time sensitive. $20,000. My emergency fund. Transferred to the joint account as bait, and she'd taken it without hesitation. That's fine, I lied. I'm sure it will all work out. Dad wandered in, scotch in hand. Clara. Just the daughter I wanted to see. I've been thinking about that retirement planning you mentioned. Given your expertise in finance, we were hoping you might consider setting up a trust for your mother and me. Nothing fancy, just something to ensure our comfort in our golden years. The audacity was almost admirable. Less than 24 hours after I discovered their plan to use my money to fund a retirement that explicitly excluded me, they were asking for more. I'd be happy to discuss that, I said. In fact, I've already started the process. I have some documents I'd like us all to review tomorrow evening. A family meeting, if you will. Dad clinked his ice cubes approvingly. Excellent, I always said you were the responsible one. If only they knew what responsible was about to look like. The following day passed in a blur of preparations. I left work early to move essential belongings to my new apartment, nothing obvious. Just important documents, family heirlooms, and irreplaceable items. The furniture could wait. At precisely 7:00 p.m., I called my family to the dining room table. I'd ordered their favorite takeout on my personal credit card for the last time and opened a bottle of wine, also mine. Before we start, I said, passing out folders to each of them. I want to thank you all for coming together like this. Family is important, and financial transparency is crucial for family harmony. Mom was already flipping through her folder, confusion gathering on her face. Clara, what are these bank statements? And why is my name highlighted next to all these charges? Those are my statements, I clarified. And your name is highlighted because those are purchases you made on credit cards fraudulently opened in my name. Dad sputtered into his wine. Fraudulently, now see here. Page 2 shows the mortgage statements. I continued calmly. You'll note the missed payments despite my regular transfers. Page 3 details the loans taken from my retirement account, which, by the way, is a federal offense. Max hadn't even opened his folder. Is this some kind of joke because it's not funny? It's not meant to be funny, Max. It's meant to be educational. I took a sip of wine. For instance, did you know that identity theft carries a penalty of up to 15 years in prison? Or that elder financial abuse? Elder Mom exclaimed, I'm only 58. Financial abuse of family members, I corrected, can result in both criminal charges and civil liabilities. But the really interesting part is on page 4. They reluctantly turned to the indicated page. This is a lease agreement. Dad squinted at the document. For my new apartment, yes, I'll be moving out completely by the end of the week. A heavy silence fell over the table, broken only by Mom's nervous laugh. Don't be ridiculous. Clara, you can't move out. Who would I mean? This is your home. Actually, it's my investment property now, I corrected, since my name is the only one on the mortgage that's not in default. Dad's face darkened. Now listen here. Young lady. No, you listen, I said, my voice firm but not raised. For nearly a decade, I've supported this family financially while being treated like an afterthought. I've paid the mortgage, covered Max's failed businesses, funded your temporary setbacks that never end, and yesterday, I discovered you were planning to take my money and disappear to Palm Springs without me. Mom had the decency to look guilty. Max suddenly became very interested in a spot on the tablecloth. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm moving out. I've redirected my income to new accounts you don't have access to. I've frozen my credit so no new cards can be opened in my name. And I've documented all the financial fraud committed against me over the past decade. Fraud, Dad exploded. We're your parents, for God's sake. Being my parents doesn't give you the right to steal from me, I replied evenly. And that's what you've been doing, stealing. Taking advantage of my sense of responsibility while contributing nothing yourselves. We gave you everything, Mom cried. We raised you, educated you. I educated myself. I paid for college through scholarships and jobs. I built my career while simultaneously carrying this entire family. I took another calm sip of wine. And now I'm done. Max finally spoke, his voice uncharacteristically small. So what happens to us? This was the moment I'd rehearsed most carefully, the moment that would determine whether I was truly free. You have options, I said. First, you can sell this house. With current property values, there should be enough equity to pay off the mortgage and give you a modest sum to start over, perhaps in a more affordable area than Palm Springs. Dad scoffed. And live where some retirement shoebox. Second, you can get jobs, real jobs, not entrepreneurial ventures. At your ages, with your education, you could each earn enough to cover basic expenses. Mom looked horrified at the suggestion. Or third, I continued, you can sign the agreement on page 5. They hurriedly flipped to the final document. This is, Dad trailed off, studying the paper. A repayment agreement. It outlines the $352,478 that I've provided to this family over the past 9 years, structured as a formal loan with reasonable interest. If you sign, I'll continue paying the mortgage temporarily while you establish income sources. In exchange, you'll repay me according to the schedule outlined, with the house as collateral. This is extortion! Dad slammed his hand on the table. Actually, it's business, I corrected. Something this family has allegedly been engaged in for years. I'm simply formalizing our arrangement. And if we refuse, Mom's voice was tight. I closed my folder calmly. Then I'll be forced to file fraud charges for the credit cards, identity theft, and unauthorized retirement account withdrawals. The documentation has already been prepared. My lawyer is holding it pending our discussion tonight. The silence that followed was deafening. Max looked pale. Mom seemed on the verge of tears. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. You would send your own parents to jail, he finally managed. I would hold the people who stole from me accountable, I corrected, regardless of our biological relationship. But I'm offering an alternative that keeps everyone out of legal trouble and gives you time to become self-sufficient. Self-sufficient, Mom repeated, as if I'd suggested they learn to breathe underwater. At our age, most people work well into their 60s. Mom, you're 58, Dad's 60. You're both healthy, educated, and capable. There's no reason you can't support yourselves like millions of other adults do every day. Max raised his hand timidly, like a schoolboy. What about me? What about my business ideas? I looked at my brother, really looked at him. Behind the bravado and entitlement was someone who had never been pushed to stand on his own feet. Our parents had failed him as much as they'd exploited me, just in different ways. Your ideas aren't the problem, Max. Your execution is. You've never had to follow through because there's always been a safety net. Me. That ends now. Get a job. Save your own startup capital. Build something sustainable, if you do. Maybe I'll consider investing someday as a proper investor with proper terms, not as an ATM. He slumped back in his chair, but I caught something unexpected in his expression, not anger, but contemplation. Dad was the first to recover his bluster. This is how you repay us for giving you life, for raising you, for everything we've sacrificed. I smiled sadly. What exactly have you sacrificed for me, Dad? When was the last time you put my needs above your wants? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The agreements are on the table, I said, standing. You have until Friday to decide. I've already packed my essentials and will be staying at my new place starting tonight. If you choose option 1 or 2, I'll help with the transition. If you choose option 3, sign the documents and leave them on my desk. If you choose none of these options, expect contact from my lawyer on Monday. I picked up my purse and headed for the door, pausing at the threshold. One last thing. Mom, the $20,000 you borrowed for the Palm Springs deposit. That was documented fraud. Taking money explicitly provided for home repairs and using it for an unauthorized purpose. The real estate agent has already been contacted by my lawyer. You'll receive a full refund within 3 business days, which will go directly to my new account. Mom gasped. But the dream house was never yours to claim with my money, I finished for her. Good night. I suggest you use this time to consider your options carefully. As I closed the door behind me, I heard the distinct sound of my father's Scotch glass shattering against the wall. For the first time in years, that sound wasn't my problem to fix. And it felt like freedom. The following days brought exactly the reaction I'd expected: a full-scale emotional assault. First came the guilt trips via text message. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Your father can't stop crying. Dad, who I'd seen cry exactly once in my life, at the Super Bowl when his team lost. Is this what they teach in finance, how to abandon your blood? We gave you everything and you give us paperwork. Then came the flying monkeys, relatives and family friends suddenly calling to check in and express concern about my mental state and unusual behavior. Clara, honey, your mother says you're having some kind of breakdown. My Aunt Susan began without preamble. Did she mention the $40,000 in fraudulent credit card debt she racked up in my name? I asked pleasantly. Awkward silence followed. Next came the health emergencies. Dad's blood pressure was suddenly dangerously high. Mom was experiencing stress-induced arrhythmia. Even Max got in on the act, texting that he was suffering from potential ulcers due to the family situation. I responded to each with the same message. I'm sorry to hear that. Here's the number for my health insurance's nurse hotline. They can recommend affordable care options. By Thursday night, one day before my deadline, the tactics shifted to bargaining. What if we sign the agreement, but you still live at home? We miss you. Translation: Who will buy groceries and clean the house? Your father and I discussed it. What if we give you 10% of the Palm Springs house? You could visit any time. Translation: We still want your money for our dream retirement. I have an amazing business opportunity, guaranteed returns. Just need $5K to secure the deal. I'll pay back everything after. Max, unsurprisingly unchanged. I didn't respond to any of these messages. I was busy settling into my apartment, arranging furniture delivered from IKEA modest pieces I'd selected myself without worrying if they matched my mother's aesthetic or my father's comfort preferences. For the first time in my adult life, I was creating a space that was entirely mine. Friday morning, I woke to a simple text from Max. We signed. Papers on your desk. I returned to the house while they were out. Mom had mentioned a mental health shopping day, which undoubtedly meant charging more things she couldn't afford, and found the signed agreement on my desk. Along with a note in my father's handwriting, Clara, you've made your point. We perhaps took advantage of your generosity. The agreement is signed as requested. Though we find the terms draconian, we expect that blood will ultimately prove thicker than water, and you'll soften your stance with time. Your father, no apology. No acknowledgement of the fraud, the theft, or the betrayal. Just the expectation that I would eventually relent because blood is thicker than water. I collected the signed documents. Took one last look around my childhood home, now technically my investment property, and left the keys to my new locks on the counter, along with detailed instructions on how the mortgage payments would work going forward. As I drove away, my phone dinged with a text from Max. Did you get the papers? I pulled over to respond, not wanting to leave him hanging despite everything. Yes, received. I'll have my lawyer process them today. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. I've been thinking about what you said, about execution, about building something real. I applied for a job yesterday, assistant manager at Tech World. Not glamorous, but it's something. I stared at the message, genuinely surprised. Of all the responses I'd anticipated from my family, positive change hadn't been among them. That's great, Max, I mean it. The dots appeared again. I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't see what was happening because I didn't want to. It was easier to take than to earn. I want to do better. Something tightened in my chest, not guilt, not exactly, but a complex emotion that acknowledged both the pain of the past and the possibility of something different in the future, one step at a time. I wrote back, let me know when you start. First paycheck is on me, celebratory dinner. I pulled back onto the road, heading toward my new home, my new life. The phone continued to buzz, undoubtedly my parents. Discovering the new locks, the missing daughter, the shifting power dynamic, I didn't check it. For 10 years, I'd been available for every crisis, responsive to every demand, present for every need. Now they would learn what it meant to stand on their own feet, and I would learn what it meant to stand on mine, without the crushing weight of their expectations and entitlement. It wasn't revenge. Exactly. Revenge implies a desire to hurt, to punish, To cause pain, what I'd done was simply draw a boundary that had been missing my entire adult life, a line between supporting family and enabling dysfunction. 3 months later, the changes were remarkable. My parents had both found part-time jobs, dad as a consultant at a local real estate firm, mom as a design advisor at a furniture store. They were making their mortgage payments to me on time, though not without regular complaints about the draconian terms. Max had stuck with his tech world job and was taking night classes in computer science. He'd stopped pitching me get-rich-quick schemes and instead occasionally asked for advice on building an actual business plan for the future. As for me, I'd received a promotion at work, started dating someone who valued my ambition instead of exploiting it, and most importantly, had finally begun to build the financial security I'd been helping everyone else achieve at my own expense. My apartment was small, but it was mine, filled with furniture I'd chosen, decorated in colors I loved, and blissfully free of family members borrowing my credit cards or guilting me into bankrolling their dreams. Some might call it cold to enforce such strict boundaries with family. Some might question whether blood really is thicker than water. But after a decade of being bled dry by the people who should have nurtured me, I've learned an important truth: real love doesn't take, it gives. It builds up rather than drains. It supports growth rather than exploits reliability. My name is Clara Turner. I'm 30 years old, and after spending my 20s as my family's personal bank, I've finally made the best investment of my life in myself. And unlike their Palm Springs fantasy, this is one dream that will actually come true because I'm making it happen, one independent day at a time.